Welcome back to Book Depths and Insights, where we explore important books' deep, sometimes uncomfortable truths. This episode begins with Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, which has been widely criticized but is always interesting. As we uncover its controversial wisdom, your ideas about strategy, influence, and human interaction will be challenged. Get ready to explore the dance of power and learn new things, whether you're a longtime follower or new. Let's begin. When we talk, do you feel like there's more going on behind the scenes? There are definitely invisible forces at work that are changing things, like unseen hands guiding conversations and outcomes. We've all felt that way at work, in relationships, or just while trying to get things done. Today, we're going to take a look at a book that claims to map out these hidden dynamics, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, which came out in 1998. It appears to have resonated strongly, gaining significant popularity. How popular? I mean, more than 100,000 online reviews with an average of 4.11 stars. Doesn't that tell you something? It touches on business, psychology, and self-help. And the real goal is to give you a framework for understanding how power works in everyday life. One source claimed that listening would take 10 minutes, but let's just say that estimate is far too optimistic for this book. 10 minutes? Not at all. Not a chance. We want to closely examine Greene's most important advice on getting along in personal and professional life. Right on. You might consider it a quick way to learn about some of the more strategic ways to gain and maintain influence. What about the author, Robert Greene? He has background in studying ancient times, right? He has a keen interest in strategy and human behavior. He worked on it with Just Elfers. Okay, let's jump right in. It feels like the first law is regressive because it promotes hiding your true intentions. Greene's first law is pretty harsh. Never reveal the purpose behind your actions. Why not? Occasionally it seems like being honest would be better. The reason is pretty simple, but it makes a strong point. People can't prepare if they don't know your intentions. They can't effectively block or counter your moves. Okay, that's fine. Also, it's important to maintain that element of surprise. Right on. Stopping opposition before it starts is crucial. It's not only about hidden things. It's about being in charge of the narrative from the beginning. The book gives real-life examples of how to do this. Yes, of course. It's kind of like being a magician and using tricks, like decoys and red herrings, to get people to look elsewhere. He also says that people create what he calls smoke screens by using vague language, being indirect, and leaving room for interpretation. Being able to reasonably deny one's intentions is a crucial aspect. Never directly state your ultimate goal. Let people guess. Let them guess what it is. That's interesting, because people try to figure you out when they don't know what to do. Right on. And they often make the situation fit their hopes or fears. That does work occasionally. They can guess what it is. If they're preoccupied with figuring you out, it diverts their attention from their own plans. Yes, exactly. If you want to quickly understand how these things work, knowing this law will give you a significant advantage. Okay, it makes sense to keep them in the dark. But what if you try to confuse them? Greene talks about cultivating unpredictability. Yes, deliberately being unpredictable. The reasoning is that people like patterns. We want things to be predictable. We feel safe with it, right? It's nice to know what to expect. If you intentionally break those patterns, you make people uncomfortable, maybe even anxious, which makes them more likely to react and less likely to be able to plan effectively against you. But how do you do that without seeming erratic? I think that's the challenging part, the nuance. It's not just chaos, it's planned unpredictability. How? The book suggests doing things like occasionally acting against your own apparent self-interest to keep your motivation somewhat mysterious. Don't let everyone know everything. Right on. Unexpected behavior changes and reactions. There is even the idea of planned irrationality. Calculated irrationality? It's kind of on purpose to appear a little unstable, just enough to make people afraid to cross you. However, it is crucial that you avoid appearing genuinely unreliable or unstable. Walking that narrow path can be extremely risky. However, if you utilize it strategically, it can lead to transformative experiences by increasing the risks and expanding the range of possibilities. That's a lot of subtle maneuvers, right? Which brings us to the next point, which may be even clearer, guiding people's choices. Yes, exactly. Law 17. Control the options. What does it mean? To put it another way, you create the appearance of choice. It's not really a decision when people pick from the options you've already laid out for them. Okay, I get it. The book also says that this kind of indirect control works much better in the long run than telling people what to do. Usually, that makes them resist. Okay. How do you arrange the options? Yes, there are a few ways to do it. Creating false choices is one, like you can choose A or B, but both benefit you. Right on. Or picture a restaurant that serves soup or salad with a meal. It looks like both have excellent profit margins. You could also slowly eliminate the other options until your preferred one is the only one that makes sense, or portraying the choices you don't want in a very negative light, using time constraints, scarcity of options, and act now tactics to make people decide quickly, right? Another, maybe the most subtle way, is to use cognitive biases, which means knowing how people usually think, like how they'll choose the middle option when they have three to choose from. That's beneficial for you. Wow. Knowing this helps you identify when it might happen to you. Without question, it's also a defensive mechanism. Okay. Now, for one that seems very counterintuitive, especially presently, never outshine the master. Don't be too good. Doesn't it sound strange? You need to manage the egos of people above you, like your boss and other people in charge. Okay. The idea is that bosses might feel threatened if a subordinate seems too smart or talented. It makes people feel insecure, jealous, and suspicious. That's why you need to dim the light a bit. It's not quite dimming. It's more like strategically positioning things. When they're around, you downplay your skills. So it's not about being incapable of doing what you need to do. Not at all, no. It's about specific strategies, like attributing your wins to luck or, more importantly, their guidance. Pretty much, flattery, strategic compliments. Yes. This also applies to the team's work. Making small, harmless mistakes every once in a while might make you seem less intimidating and more relatable. Asking for their help, even if you don't really need it, boosts their pride and makes them feel like you value their input. Sometimes focusing on your flaws while still subtly showcasing your strengths in other ways. The game sounds like it will be a long one. Yes, it is. The book makes it clear that the process isn't about staying stagnant forever. It's about carefully gaining power while ensuring those above you feel secure and perhaps even superior to you. This is likely something that everyone in the workforce recognizes. Yes, that makes sense. It's a tricky balance. Now, let's talk about something that sounds almost cult-like, getting people to follow you and becoming what others desire. Okay, people are deeply affected by this strong desire to belong, to believe in something, to have a cause, or to follow a leader. Right on. Greene says that you can become the center of people's hopes and loyalty if you give them a compelling reason to support you, like a new set of beliefs. At this point, it starts to sound like a playbook for, charismatic leaders or cult leaders. Yes, the book analyzes the elements you see there. What kind of elements? Creating an us versus them mentality to unite people using rituals and symbols, making grand promises about change and a better future, and maintaining an air of mystery are all ways to do this. Yes, mystery and secrecy. Greene says that this balance in messaging is critical. That way, people can interpret it to fit their desires, but it's also specific enough to be captivating and allow you to adjust the message later. Yes, exactly. If you want to understand what motivates people, this section is for you. It takes a close look at belief and group dynamics. Yes, intense is the word. Now let's talk about something maybe a little more practical, making plans. Greene emphasizes the importance of planning all the way through. Of course, Law 29, plan to the end. It is crucial to consider all potential outcomes, challenges, and unexpected events. So having foresight gives you power? That's the point. You can navigate things much more easily if you think about your goals and prepare for obstacles, preventing you from being caught off guard. How does that work in real life? How specific are we talking about? It's a process. First, clearly define what you want to achieve. Then, create a roadmap of the steps you need to take to get there. Next, consider what could go wrong and what obstacles might arise at each step. And for every potential problem, you should have a backup plan. Plan B, Plan C, right? Also, think about how other people will react to your actions. Plan for that as well. And most importantly, keep reevaluating. Be ready to adapt. Yes, careful planning and the ability to change your mind. Right on. Even the best plans must always be adaptable. For you wanting to get a comprehensive understanding, this shows how crucial good planning is for achieving things. That makes perfect sense. Making things look effortless resembles performance art. Yes, that's right. Law 46. Make your accomplishments seem natural and easy. Conceal the effort. Keep the clever tricks hidden. Why? What's the point of that? It projects an air of effortless superiority. When someone does things easily, it's impressive and maybe even intimidating. That's why it's about hiding the struggle and the practice. Yes, pretty much. Don't talk about how hard it was. Don't dwell on your success. Act like it just happened. Don't complain about difficulties. Don't lose your composure. Isn't there a word for that? Sprezzatura. That's the Italian word for studied carelessness, making difficult things appear easy, right? This makes you seem more mysterious, and it might make other people feel a little less capable in comparison. Knowing these facts helps you recognize the effort that goes into people who seem to be doing things effortlessly. That's very interesting. Okay, how about being honest? It doesn't seem like that would be a power law, but Greene talks about being selectively honest. Yes. Law 18. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. This is an intriguing thought. How does that work? The idea is that one honest act at the right time can make someone lower their guard, behind which many less honest things can be concealed. Therefore, telling one truth increases people's trust in you, which may lead them to believe lies later. Essentially, yes. This approach can also help reduce people's suspicion, similar to how admitting a small, forgivable flaw can make you appear more human and trustworthy. Sharing an openness, or what appears to be openness, can make someone feel closer than they really are. Admitting a minor mistake could divert attention from a larger issue. Being honest about things that don't affect your main goal can also help you build a reputation for honesty that you can exploit later. Some people can be thrown off by sudden honesty when they least expect it. The key seems to be timing and moderation. The importance of timing and moderation is profound. Being too honest can make you seem untrustworthy, just as excessive lying clearly backfires. This approach is well calculated and thoroughly considered. Now let's explore a more challenging topic: how to deal with enemies. Greene clearly states that it results in a total loss. Law 15 says to crush your enemy totally. Leave no room for reconciliation. Yes, it's harsh. Why is it absolute? The book argues that taking half measures is detrimental. If you wound an enemy, and leave. If you leave them alive, they might return to seek revenge later. Thus, being decisive is important, as is being thorough. What does totally crushing them really mean? How should you go about it? Strategies include cutting individuals off from their supporters, destroying their reputation, isolating them, and making it impossible for them to retaliate in any way, economically, politically, or otherwise. They were left with no opportunity to make amends or make a comeback. They even set an example for others to follow. That sounds like a very dangerous idea. one that could backfire badly. Yes, of course. The book warns you about this issue. Crushing someone can turn them into a martyr or turn other people against you out of fear or sympathy. Without a doubt, it's the extreme end of the power spectrum. It really is. Now, let's shift our focus to a topic that may be more beneficial for everyone: how to effectively achieve your desires. Correct? Law 16. Always appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. People constantly think, "What's in it for me?" That's the main point. People are mostly driven by what benefits them. Is it more effective to request kindness or remind them of previous favors? It usually doesn't work as well as showing them how helping you helps them. Avoid saying, "Hey, remember when I helped you move?" That's probably not the best way to start. No, the advice is to only consider what will benefit them. Find out what they need or want. Show them how your request helps them achieve their goals. Offer something tangible in return. Reciprocity. Use their ego and status to your advantage. Get them to see the indirect benefits. Also, don't use guilt trips or leverage past relationships. Usually that leads to resentment instead of cooperation. That seems like very useful advice for, well, almost any situation where you need something. Okay, last one. Exploiting weaknesses is what we'll talk about. That sounds cruel. Yes, it does. Law 24. Find each man's thumbscrew. Everyone has a weak spot, a vulnerability. Usually this vulnerability manifests as an insecurity, an emotion beyond control, or a secret pleasure. The important thing is to find it. Yes, by carefully observing and getting to know people. How can you find these flaws? According to the book, you should listen for emotional triggers and sore spots, look for patterns in their past behavior, and notice differences between their public and private personas. Right on. You can gauge people's reactions in conversation by asking subtle questions. However, if you identify a weakness, you should use it subtly rather than attacking directly. Instead, let your knowledge influence how you interact with them. This approach will indeed help you achieve your goals more effectively. It definitely addresses those unspoken vulnerabilities that drive people. We have discussed a variety of topics including hiding goals, being unpredictable, limiting choices, managing egos, building beliefs, making plans, presenting things as easy, practicing selective honesty, defeating enemies, appealing to self-interest, and exploiting weaknesses. What are the main ideas that run through everything? Well, besides the specific laws, you see recurring themes like the importance of building. This includes protecting your reputation, understanding how indirect control can be more powerful than direct force, employing strategies to make others dependent on you, and recognizing that power is fluid and constantly shifting, something we can influence. There was also a strong emphasis on psychology and psychological tactics, understanding human behavior and thought processes. You said that some laws were especially important to you. Law 1. Never outshine the master. I think this is important for everyone in any kind of hierarchy, deflecting threats and positioning yourself strategically. It makes sense. Law 3. Conceal your intentions is central to many strategies, such as creating confusion, employing deception, or even fostering a unique form of trust. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally is the really tough one. Even though it's extreme, it highlights the importance of decisiveness in conflict. Many historical examples in the book illustrate the dangers of taking half measures. It's also about the psychological impact. That brings up the history part. There are many stories in the book, right? Of course, we use anecdotes from various historical periods featuring kings, queens, courtiers, con artists, and military leaders to illustrate every law. Does that help? I believe it does. It helps you understand and remember the ideas better. It provides context and suggests that they're not just novel concepts, but perhaps enduring patterns of behavior. Finally, we've reached the end of our in-depth look at the 48 laws of power. It offers a way to understand the dynamics of power by using history, as a guide. Without a doubt, it has resonated with many, providing a very candid and sometimes uncomfortable perspective on human interaction, a viewpoint that encourages a more deliberate and strategic approach to navigating life. That's one way to put it. Yes, it is important to take more time to consider how we navigate our world. As a final thought for those listening, consider all of these strategies. Which one law do you see playing out most often in your work and in your life? What do you think the long-term effects of consistently using that law might be? This is a topic that warrants careful consideration. Thanks for exploring the 48 Laws of Power with us. Read the whole book for a more profound understanding and personal growth. In our next episode, Book Depths and Insights will explore another intriguing literary journey. Take care until then.